Okay, good morning. So we're up to Shin Lamed Beis, a new simon, a short, very short simon. Says the Mechaba, Shelo liyaled habeima b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to help an animal give birth on Shabbos. Says the Mechaba in Aleph, Ein meyaldin es habeima b'Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Pirush limshech havlad ben harechem, to extract the vlad, the baby, the fetus, min harechem, from the rechem, to ikatirchi yaseira. Because doing that is a problem of tircha, yaseira on Shabbos. V'ayim b'achronim sheskimu ta'afle sa'ado hainu, even to do sa'ado, which is sha'ichiz havlad shelo yipol la'aretz, to hold on to the fetus, levlad, this baby animal, shelo yipol la'aretz v'noisen le'dad l'teich piv, that you put the dad into the animal's mouth, also b'Shabbos v'chein tzolchei leida hamavu b'simen tov kuf chof gimel ayin sham. That all that is not allowed on Shabbos. If you look at footnote number 1, he says to blow into the vlad, into the nostril of the animal, when it's all blocked up, beririm, with mucus, to put from the water, the placenta of the behema al havlad, all of these sort of things are also. Okay, so that's Aleph. Ein miyaldin es habeim b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to help an animal give birth on Shabbos. Seif beis. Ein mefarchasin lebehema. You're not allowed to scrape away on an animal gildei mako, the scabs of a wound. V'lo sachin ois b'shem, nor can you sort of smear it, anoint it with oil. V'hani mili b'gmar maka. That's at the end of that scab. Because that's just a tanuk for the animal. But at the beginning of the animal's wound, where there is sar for the animal, there is distress, then you're allowed to. It says in Mefarchas in Pirush, lahoser sageret, to remove the scab. That's when the wound is healed. And therefore you can't do a tirchi yaseira just to give an oineg to the animal. But if it's a case of the beginning of the wound and then it's a tzar, then you're allowed to. Okay, Gimel. Im ochlo kashinin. If the animal has overeaten lots of beans and it's in a lot of distress, you're allowed to get the animal to make sure the animal runs around, to sort of make sure it runs, that it gets worn out, and that is the cure for its overeating. Says the Mishnah Berurah, even though that's sort of a medical treatment, and of course medical treatment for a human being is not allowed, because there's shchika samonim. But when it comes to refuah for the animal, a person doesn't get confused. That he might come to do shchika samamonim. If you look at 2, he says you're allowed to put some ointment on a wound of an animal, but you make sure you don't smear it in. And so too, you'd be allowed to do other form of medical intervention for the animal, to give the animal some medication, or to even do some sort of injection into the animal. However, if the animal is it's the shaila of pikuach nefesh animal, in other words, the animal might die, and therefore the owner would be very confused. And nevertheless, it's still allowed to give medical treatment to the animal. So we're allowed to do certain things which are not, you're not being over any isurim, and that would be allowed, because otherwise you might come to be bohol, and you might come to do more, if you don't allow that, you might come to do more serious things. So you're allowed to make the animal run around to heal it. But you can't do any melacha. So you can get the animal to run around, and you can do different things. You can blow in the nostrils of the animal and these sort of things. But you can't do an issa deraisa and even drabonon, even if the animal is mesa. But you can get it; it's going to die. But you can get a non-Jewish person to deal with the animal when the animal is sick. If you look at the Mishnah Berurah in number 3, the footnote number 3, avlaver alisum drabonon she'elam shirish bat me'atayra b'shvil tzar b'alei chayim. But if the animal is in distress, then if it's an issa drabonon, Kagoin la'aval issa muktzah kadei lahalas be'emes shenofel lebar. For example, the animal fell into a pit and it's in distress, and the only issa to take it out is an issa of muktzah. So that's okay. Kosav le'el shenechelku b'zeh ha'poiskim v'lo echir b'dov v'chay odom, she says kosav sheyesh lismech ala mekilim. So that you're allowed to do. Over mokum, in the next paragraph, in footnote 3, over mokum sheyesh hefsed meruba v'tzar b'alei chaim, if there is a big loss for you and there is tzar b'alei chaim, kosav ha'shulchan aruch harav sheyesh lismech ala mekilim la'aval isurim drabonon. V'chein kosav ha'chazon ish ele shehoziv shem yochel lechakas adalayla in lahakel klal. So for you to be over isurim for the sake of your animal, then only if there's tsar for the animal, and according to the Chai Odom, only if there's hefsed merubah as well, which there might be. But the Chazon Ish says that if you can wait till night, then of course it's better. But to get a non-Jewish person to intervene, that's fine. But if it's other things where there's no isurim involved, then, for example, like in our case, of yochel haritza b'chotze, you're just getting the animal to run, and that will be the refuah for the animal. That's not a problem. There's no gezer of shchikas samonim to do these sort of things. Okay, dalet. Im achoz dom, if the animal has got a lot of blood in it, yochel amida b'mayim kadesh stand, you're allowed to sort of let the animal sort of soak in water that it cools down because it's overheating because of this ochzadam. You're allowed to do. Thomas, if the shaila is that if you don't let blood, you don't draw some blood out of the animal will die. You're allowed to tell a non-Jewish person to do hakozas adam, to draw blood from the animal. That would be okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Zayin, Yochel Hamida Hakol Kanal B'Sif Cotton Hay. V'imhu Sofek the Mitoch She'Adam Boal Al Mamoinai, because people get very distressed and confused when it comes to these financial matters. There's whether he might suffer a loss. If you don't allow it, then he might come to do an Issa D'Oraisa, and therefore it would be allowed. Thomas, and if the concern is that it might die, then you get a non-Jewish person to do it. Even if the animal is just sick, so you're allowed to tell a non-Jewish person to heal the animal because of the distress for the animal. But just to let the blood of the horse, in order that the horse can eat more, that is not allowed. He says in footnote 6, even though the Shulchan Aruch says it's only allowed to instruct the non-Jewish person to do this in the case of Sofik Sakana, says you're allowed to tell a non-Jewish person to milk the animal, because not milk, if he can't discharge its milk, it's going to cause saf the animal. So in short, you're allowed, even if there's no sakana involved, but to alleviate tzar b'alei chaim, then for sure you're allowed to tell the non-Jewish person to do that. So just to summarize what we've said today in Shin Lamed Beis, that you can't be miyaled behem on Shabbos, you can't be actively involved in helping the animal give birth, because it's a problem of tircha. Nor can you be mefarchs in lebehema gilde maka, which is just an oneg. That's tircha. That's talking about the soif refuah of the animal. But if it's tchilas maka, which involves tzar b'alei chaim, then you're allowed to do that. Not being involved in isurim, you're allowed to sort of just put some cream on it, but not smear it in, which involves isurim, like we saw, or things like that. But you can do other than non-isurim. For example, you can let the animal run around, encourage the animal to run, if that's going to alleviate the distress that it's in. But when it comes to isurim, then only nisa drabonim, when it's a situation of tsar, you're allowed to do. For example, being over the issa of muktzah, taking it out of a pit, and other situations, tell a non-Jewish person to do it would be okay. Say that. Yeah.